Hi, I'm Zack, and this is episode 556 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today's episode is a little different than usual. It was recorded live at ABA Techshow 2025, where I had the chance to speak with a wide range of experts and innovators in the legal tech space. You'll notice the format is a bit more on the ground and conversational, and that's intentional. We wanted to capture the energy of the event and bring you into some of those real-time conversations as they were happening. Now, my guest today is Cole Popkin, a digital forensics senior analyst at Proven Data. Now, if you hear digital forensics and immediately think not my area, I encourage you to stick with this one. Cole typically works with attorneys in personal injury and family law, cases where recovering deleted text messages, analyzing metadata, or examining timelines of digital activity can be critical. But what he shares in this conversation applies much more broadly than that. So, whether you're in litigation, transactional work, or running a small firm with a growing tech stack, understanding the basics of digital forensics can help you better protect your clients and yourself. We talk about the kinds of information that can still be pulled from devices even after it's been deleted, why encryption isn't always a safety net, and how surprisingly easy it can be to leak client data without realizing it. Cole also shares some simple, practical steps you can take to secure your devices and digital communications. Now, this isn't a doom and gloom security talk. It's a realistic, lawyer friendly look at how to be smarter about the tech we already use every day. As lawyers, we have an ethical obligation to safeguard client information, but many of us don't know what's really happening under the hood of our devices. This episode is an opportunity to learn from someone who does. You don't need to become a forensics expert, but understanding what's possible and what's at risk can help you be a better steward of the trust your clients place in you. Now, here's my conversation with Cole Popkin.
I'm Cole, and I work as the team senior digital forensic analyst at Proven Data.
Cole, thanks for being with me. So, Proven Data, forensics analysis. What is this? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, great question. So my mantra is if it contains data, it can be analyzed.
Okay.
If it can be analyzed, it can be used for you or against you in court. Let me use it for you. So, we'll analyze anything from phones and computers to video files, audio files are kind of the main four. But then even we'll do kind of more niche types of things such as email forensics, PDF forensics, Excel forensics, even get into kind of some vehicle forensics. So anything that contains data, which is pretty much everything these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of litigators, a lot of people in the family law area would understand kind of like what that forensics really is. But can you give us an example of kind of what we're talking about, why we would need kind of our digital data forensically analyzed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, bottom line is, especially in the criminal defense field, everything contains data. So if, law enforcement is prosecuting something, there's a good chance the phone is going to be a part of that evidence.
Okay.
Oftentimes it goes so, underutilized for what it can actually be accomplished with analysis. So, for example, I'm actually working a case right now where someone's accused of an armed robbery, and we're able to build out a timeline. And then, I think the incident happened at, X time, but we're able to get location data that he was, I think an hour and a half away, 30 minutes before that. So there's no logical way that he could be there. But, it's not clear to people who don't know how to interpret the data that's with it. And, unfortunately, law enforcement is so backed up with every case, not able to give each one the attention it needs. So that's kind of where third-party companies like us come in and fill in those gaps.
So you're able to take information from the person's phone and determine where, at the very least, that phone was located.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. We'll do stuff from, we'll also utilize cell phone towers, Wi-Fi logs that are with like a business or a home or something like that, and kind of build up that timeline.
Okay. We're talking about phones, we're talking about computers, we're talking about email. You said something about cars.
Yeah.
This is fascinating to me because I get into rental cars.
Sure.
And I see it and it says, do you want to connect your phone to this thing?
Yep.
And I'm like, hell no, I don't.
Right. Yes. You never know what's going to happen with that.
So talk to me about that. What kind of information can you get out of a car?
Yeah. So this kind of comes more involved with our personal injury lawsuits that we'll work with. It's kind of the predominant area these come into play. I mean, so like, super old ones, right? They don't contain as much electronic data, but people don't realize how much is actually being stored in a car. So not just location data, but speed. Even we'll do a few like stolen vehicle cases, and then we're able to determine, like the Bluetooth address of the phone that you were talking about a second ago, and show like, well, the the phone was connected to the car at this point in time, and it was stolen that exact same day. Okay, we need to look for where is this Bluetooth address from. So there's all types of things you can get. Burla is kind of the main tool that we'll use for that. And then as well as we kind of do some of our own custom scripting to interpret the data.
So what is Burla?
Yeah, Burla is kind of the leading tool for vehicle forensics right now.
Okay, so kind of plugs in, I assume, and this is just from me changing the oil in my car, plugs into the computer. Does it plug into the same
Not
area,
exactly.
or?
It's a pretty lengthy process of...
Okay.
I mean, there are some you can just, plug it in and download, and there you go. Other ones, you kind of take out the head unit and then sync all the data from that.
That feels a lot more professional, as opposed to me just kind of like getting up underneath.
You can't really use Chris Fixit for this type of thing. He's a great YouTuber for if you need, a car fix, but you need to have a little more specialized training with your breaking down a vehicle with that.
Yeah. Okay, so we can kind of tell where somebody is, time, sort of entries, speed, and things like that. So I can see this being in PI cases, pretty nicely.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about the information on your phone. Okay, so I'd like to dig into this a little bit more,
please.
like about what kind of information. When I think about, we quote unquote search somebody's phone.
Sure.
Let's say, I think text messages.
Yep.
So yeah, that's going to be there. But what other information? What other kind of information can we get out of the phone?
That's a good question. I remember this is when I was with state police, doing contract work. There was one case where someone was accused of violating their probation.
Okay.
Right. And so, we were able to go through the text messages, and we saw a bunch of text messages that were received, but none that were actually sent.
Okay.
So technically, the person was trying to get him to violate the parole order. And then around that same time, I'm looking through the search history, and it's the person that I have a restraining order against is texting me, what do I do? And it's like 3 a.m. So, I mean, it could be a ploy, but he's probably really stressed. So there's just other types of evidence that you can take into account with that. So browser history, call logs, even, social media apps, fitness trackers, right? All of that contains more data that you can parse out and organize to create a case.
Okay. So man, the mind reels with this.
The possibilities are endless. It's incredible.
Yeah, they really are, because like I wear a Garmin watch a lot, and that's connected to my phone.
Yep.
And that is connected to, some app online. And I actually I tell my kids that I coach cross country.
Okay.
I tell them to make their Strava account private.
Sure.
But then I challenge them to go find my house based on my Strava account, because I want to scare them into this.
Right.
And so right now, I want to kind of scare attorneys into being thoughtful about the security of their phones. So what are some ways that we can protect ourselves as an attorney? Let's flip this around from I can get a ton of data to how can I make sure that my data is safe in that area?
I think probably one of the biggest things you can do is have a personal phone and have a work phone.
Okay.
Because that's going to limit a lot of liability. That's going to be your way. Because if your personal device is breached, you're going to be open to a worldwide type of things. Whereas if your work phone is breached, right, then you have something else. I mean, it's not entirely on them at that point.
Yeah, this makes sense to me, because my father always told me, like, when I was writing things as an attorney, he's like, write as if this was being brought up in court. Yeah. As if this was evidence in court. And so I think about our things as attorneys as it could potentially be subpoenaed. And if my personal phone is my work phone, then
we're not even talking about a breach. We're talking about I had to hand this over to somebody,
Right.
and now we have forensic analysis on my personal phone. And
Mm-hmm.
so separating those two things into work and personal phone sounds like a really good idea.
It is a good idea. We're in the middle of a lawsuit right now where the client that we're representing, her attorney actually got breached. Attorney in
Okay.
New York, a mid-sized law firm,
Yeah.
really competent attorney as well. Like, part of the job is to go through the attorney, see if they seem competent. And then every case that I'm reading about her, she seems like she knows what she's doing. But
Yeah.
there was a cybersecurity issue. They didn't have the best, what seems like email hosting service.
Okay.
And then it allowed for her actual email to be breached.
Oh.
So, and even another type of scam that I'm seeing more frequently is, so, for example, our company name is Proven Data, right? So my email is Cole@ProvenData. If there could be a scammer out there that has Cole@PROV-NDATA.com, right? So
Right.
always make sure you're checking the email domain as well. That's where, so many of the scams come from is from that false domain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. And that potentially lets somebody get in, and now they're.
They didn't have to be into the network at that point. At that point, they're then speaking with the client, and then they're able to basically route all communications to them.
Okay.
Especially if they're avoiding phone calls type of thing. Like they'd have no way. The client has no way of knowing.
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure you're checking the email domains at least regularly.
Okay.
Even just having, I know it's a pain, but having longer email threads, right, is a good practical way to determine is this the same person that I've been emailing with back and forth.
I see. As opposed to creating a new thread and saying like I'm
Exactly.
gonna go
I'm not
email
saying
Zack.
don't create a new thread because sometimes you have to.
Right,
But
right.
when possible.
Right. And I like, just as a tangent, I like taking those conversations off onto Teams or something like that.
Absolutely.
So, okay. What is your favorite thing that you can kind of grab from this digital data that you think,
Ooh.
people don't know that this is being tracked?
That is an awesome question. So I'll tell you about a case that we just wrapped up last year. So it was an armed robbery case at a gas station. I think it was like 2001. The person who was convicted of the crime, and this comes into play in a second, his height is 5'6".
Okay.
Now that we analyze the video, we're actually able to, through a lot of math and calculations and forensics work, right, we're actually able to determine the height of the person in the video.
Oh.
So in this case, right, the person in the video holding the gun, holding up the gas station, was actually, it was a range of 5'1" to 6'1". So
Okay.
there's no plausible way, unless he had some really high heels on, which is pretty impractical. So people don't realize the 3D measurements that is available. Because, bottom line is video forensics has come a long ways, but there's still just so many cheap options for security cameras. There's very little a video forensic analyst can do. But
Okay.
there's almost always an opportunity to do expert measurements in the video.
Okay.
So that's where I think it's, especially in the criminal defense field,
Yeah.
of someone says, that's definitely not me in the video, but facial reconstruction isn't going to be super practical
Right.
in a video. So, height is a huge way to determine if it is someone from a law enforcement perspective, but even if it isn't someone from kind of that defense attorney perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I think of like CSI
Yeah.
New York or whatever, and they're everybody's sitting at the computer and they're saying enhance.
Yep.
Enhance.
No,
and I'm like, bullshit.
I wish that could be it, but it's actually scroll, fix this pixel, fix that pixel,
Yeah.
and then fast forward 5 or 6 hours.
But we can still get some practical things. Like, we're not going to
100%.
enhance, and then it's like, oh my god, that person has a mole on their
Right.
left cheek. But we can say that person is either 6'1",
Absolutely.
or like a range, like
right,
you said.
or even brightness filters to determine race.
Okay.
And license plates usually has one of the higher success rates with things.
Yeah.
And even if you only get, 4 or 5 characters, you can get the make and model of a car. You're usually able to pinpoint, with a PI database or something like that. Like we use IDI Core for those types of things. You can usually figure out who the vehicle kind of actually belongs to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Man, this is
It's a whole
eye-opening.
fascinating world of possibilities out there. That
Yeah.
I don't even know all of them. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even, practically speaking, forensics, this is more, an opinion than a hard, fast fact, but has really only been around for, maybe 25 to 30 years.
You mean it's like digital forensics?
Digital forensics. Yep. So it's, especially with the rampant, rise of various types of, everything's digital now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're still figuring out new ways to parse through data. And when I say parse, it means like use it to analyze it
Yeah.
for court.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Cole, thank you. This has been, like I said, eye-opening.
Yeah.
This
Thanks so much for having me.
How do people get a hold of proven data?
Yeah, absolutely. Just feel free to go to our website. I'm sure you can link it somewhere. Feel free to reach out to me directly. My work phone is 616-214-0540. And then, feel free to email me at cole@provendata as well.
Awesome. And that doesn't have the weird hyphen in it.
No, it doesn't. Yes, that's my authentic one. So if you see something that's not that domain, it's not me.
Fantastic. Well, Cole, thank you for being with me. I appreciate
thanks
it.
so much for having me. I appreciate it.